Hey friends, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm going to create a series of videos where you're going to learn along with me how to create an iPhone app from the scratch. If you have never done coding in their life, don't fret too much. This tutorial, which is a series of videos, is for beginners as well as for app intermediate. So hop on and there'll be a comment box on the YouTube channel. Feel free to leave your question over there and I'll be happy to answer them. What I've done today is I put together a small PowerPoint presentation just to give an introductory review of what we're going to do in this series. Post that, mostly we'll be dealing with a platform known as Xcode, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit later. But this PPT will orient you of what you're going to learn during this when you're with me during this series. So what you're going to learn, you're going to leverage an environment called as Xcode. Xcode is a platform created by Apple where you can use to create apps for different Apple products like iPhone, iPad, iWatch, Mac, or any other platform you can think of that Apple produces. We are going to learn our entire coding using that. For the sake of the series, we are only going to focus on iPhone app. So at the end of the series, you'll be able to create an app for an iPhone from the scratch. So I strongly believe that learning becomes fun when you can relate to it. So instead of going into the syntactical areas and telling you how the Xcode works and all, I thought it'll be fun if we can create an app itself as a part of the program, and you can learn all the nuances behind it. So the app that I thought of creating along with you is the book tracker app. It's a simple app where we're going to create a book record and think of book lovers. They want to keep a track of all their books. You can save the book in a native database within the environment. You'll be able to do all of the necessary function. You'll be able to delete a book. You'll be able to add a book. You'll be able to create a new record. You'll be able to display the books accordingly as well. Like any other book tracker, we want to keep a track of what you have read, what you have not. You may like to assign favorites so that when you're searching, you can search on favorites and things like that. So at the end of it, it will be fully functional book tracker with simple function like you'll be able to display your books, you'll be able to mark the favorites, and you can keep track of what you're reading or what you have read in the past. All right. So what do you need to do or what do you need to bring? A few technical things first. You need to have an iCloud account. If you have a Mac device, you know what an iCloud account is. It is an email attached to the Apple ID, which is used to recognize you as a valid Apple user. Predominantly, if an iPhone or a Mac, you would know that. You need to create it as a part of your system setup. You need a Mac for this. Since we are coding for the Apple environment, you need to have a Mac and an environment known as Xcode, which I spoke to you before. Xcode is an app which is in the App Store. Think of this as another app created by Apple. You can go to the App Store, search for Xcode, and download. There's a nominal amount you need to pay. I think, if I'm not wrong, $4.99. There are two different versions. $4.99 is for the basic Xcode. And if you become a professional, you want to publish app, you need to also pay about $99 a year, which will allow you to publish the app on the App Store, where, as you download different apps from the App Store, your app can be featured there as well. So much about that in the later stages of the programming, but that's the basic necessity from a technical standpoint. But besides that, you also need to bring the right attitude. This will be a series of, the beginners will be at least 5 to 6 videos. So you need to have the patience, the right attitude to spend this amount of time with me and going through that. You need to have a dedication. Things may not work at times. You have to try things out. If you're a beginner, you have to really pay attention. As I told before, there's a comment box. You can come and comment over there. And predominantly, you have to have that in you to go through a series of video to learn. Then obviously you need to have the right aptitude. You need to have the basic logic and a logical sense to know how the programming world works. Even if you have not done programming, don't worry too much. Hopefully this is your first venture into it and you'll like it. So after you're done, you'll be able to create iPhone apps, ability to use different user interface concepts. You must have used different apps. You can tap, you can open things, You can make things bigger by zooming in, zooming out. All those features or different things that you see, you'll be able to create most of them at the end of this series. You'll be able to publish app to a store or onto your phone. If you are, this is like, for example, this book tracker is not a professionally ready app you'll create for the bookstore, or for that matter, there are many book tracker app. This is only for the learning purpose. So we'll teach you how to publish that on your phone. At least you can use your own book tracker app on your iPhone device, and track your books or show it to your friends accordingly. All right. So with that said, without further ado, I will take you to the Xcode environment. So I'm presuming you'll go to the App Store. You see this icon here. You can go here. You can look for Xcode. Once you download it, it's pretty simple. It takes about 3-4 hours to download. Once you do that, you'll find either this icon, or you can look up in the application portfolio as an Xcode, right? So for me, I have traced the icon here. If you have difficulty locating, post me a comment and I will quickly show you where to find it. But for now, let's open Xcode. So the moment you click on it, it pops up a screen in a minute, which is the welcome screen. We are going to create a new Xcode program. So there are many others, like clone an existing program, playground. Don't worry too much about it. Let's try to create a new Xcode project. So if you see here what I told you, right, you can create iPhone, iPad, Mac, Apple Watch, Apple TV, all the different Apple products, and create app from here. All right, go ahead and click on that. All right. So once you do that, you come to the environment, but the environment needs certain information. So right now there are, you can see on the top, there are different environment here. So let the default iOS be clicked, which is required, which is the platform operating system rather used by iPhone. We are going to create an iPhone app, remember, so you're going to use that. And it is also used by iPad as well. So use that. There are many different ways to create an app. We will learn about that a little later, but for the purpose of this program and the demo, let's click the single view app and click next. Once you do that, it will ask for a product name. We will name it as, can give any name to it. So for this, I'll say book tracker tutorial. All right. This is my name. You can put your name, identifier, SNN, anything that you want to. This is important. You can see a language. You can just drop down. There are two. Objective-C is an older language. Some people love coding there, but we will use Swift for now. So make sure the language we'll use is Swift. So if you're in the programming world, language is the way you code, like C, C++. Swift is a language that Apple uses, which is a syntactical language for creating apps. So select Swift, and the user interface, make sure you have storyboard selected. In a different series, I'll teach you how to create Swift UI. But for this one, we'll use a storyboard concept for doing it. We'll talk more about storyboard later on, but have that selected, and right down below, you see this core data, get it selected. You can ignore the CloudKit for now. Very brief about that. Core data is required if you want to persist data, you want to store data. By default, Apple provides you a database where you can store, retrieve data. So assume this, when you create your book, you want this to be stored or persisted in your environment, so that next time you open the phone, you can see that book. You can only do that when you have this selected, so it provides you all the required things to do that. CloudKit is a cloud-based environment. We'll talk about it. I'll create a different series for CloudKit as well in the future, but for now, let's use core data and click next. Now, when you click next, it takes you to a folder structure. I created Xcode folder for myself. Feel free to use any folder where you want to store all your projects. Remember the name, book tracker tutorial. So you'll use that and create a folder for you. And many projects going on. You can see the names here. You simply say create. If you want to change your folder, feel free to do so. I'll simply say create here, and it will create the skeleton environment for me. All right, so I will make this environment the screen a little big so that you can see things in perspective, and take it up over here. All right, so this is the base environment. What you see here is the book tracker tutorial. There are certain properties it has. We will go through this in detail, but just to give orientation, this is the name we have given. This is your organization name. I've given SNN. You can give any name. It'll say the organization.big tutorial. You don't worry about the versions and all, but you see here, this is the iOS is the operating system. If you have iPhone, you must have seen that when it updates, it says that 13.5 version is there. The latest and greatest is used. I will deselect the iPad because I only want to focus on iPhone for now. And portrait and landscape, when you orient your phone, the landscape and portrait comes. But for this tracker, let's only use portrait, so only you have one view, one orientation, right? So only on the straight vertical view will be there, the landscape view will be missing. So when you turn the phone, the book tracker will not change itself. If you know what I'm saying, if you've used app, you must have seen that as a function. So we want to keep things simple now in the beginning, so we'll keep portrait for now. And we will ignore the other properties for now. We'll revisit this as required, but let's try to get oriented ourselves with how the environment looks like. So if you see the environment, there are three distinct blocks. So you have block one. If you see my mouse hovering around, there's a block 2, which is the core part where we have done the changes right now. And then you have block 3, which is another block of information towards the right hand side. So block 1 is more for a navigation purpose, right? So if you see here, it gives the book tracker tutorial name and all of different files that by default it has created. We'll learn about that as we go along. Don't worry too much about it for now, but you see that over here, right? Similarly, here is where all of the action happens. When you'll code here. When you'll design on this part. So this is the part you're mostly interfacing with. And the last part is the property part. Whatever you select, the properties of that will be shown here. Properties, think of them as values that you need to give, which will define the behavior of certain elements. You'll learn more about this, don't worry too much, but I just want to let you know that there are three distinct parts which we will learn as we go along. So what I want you to do is, on the left hand side, if you see, there's a main storyboard. Let's click on that. So what is a storyboard? Think of storyboard as if you've ever been an author, you've written a book, or you've written stories and all, you know what is a storyboard, right? Where you can see everything that is coming along, right? So this storyboard exactly shows you how your screen looks like, right? So what you see here is what you get on the phone or any other devices. So you see here, this is a phone structure. So I told you, right? On the left hand side, it is very event driven. So as I clicked on the main storyboard, will show you all the story. You can squeeze. It's like if you know how to do that on phone. If you use the gesture of reducing the size, I just reduced to show you the perspective. There is one screen by default created for you, which is a blank screen over here, and then this property which on right hand side goes blank. Interestingly, it depends on what you select, it gives the value according, but you can see that all the properties come here, right? So as you select different elements here, different things will come along. I'm going to teach about these different names later on, but just to show you the perspective of how the middle screen changes, I'm going to select on a file, view controller. Don't worry too much about what view controller is, but you see that the context changes accordingly. And I go back to my main storyboard again, and I just select by clicking on the view controller, which is the first screen of this. As you select on this, you see that the environment changes, property changes on this. What these properties are, we'll learn about it later, but just to give you the perspective how it basically works, I'm just clicking on those. All right, so now on the top, you can see my arrow here. There are three different blocks here, and this is to design how you want the screen to be. So by default, you're seeing that this is blue, which means that the left navigation is on, and this is blue as well, which means that the right navigation is on. There is another one which is grayed out. That means there's a bottom navigation also, you can put it on. So let's try to play around with this. So if I make it gray, you can see that your left navigation is completely gone. Want it back, click it back again. These are important ones. When you do coding, will be required. And then you have the right one. Similarly, you can pick it off and on. These are required when you want to play around, want more space to code or do different design. Comes out very handy. And there's another view as well, which comes out. We'll learn about those views as we'll do further down in the coding, which is a bottom view as well. So you can see that these views can be changed accordingly. About this plus and other symbols we'll learn in the later on, but I just want to get you oriented to this. to make sure you understand what basically happens. Okay. With that said, what I want to do is I want to basically show you the first view controller, what it basically means, and we'll stop there for now. I want you to play around with this and see that you get familiar before going to the next video. So you see this screen, this is your first screen. See this arrow over here? This arrow basically shows that if you have more than one screen, how would your phone know which screen to show first? Wherever the arrow is, whichever screen the arrow is, that screen is shown first. In this particular environment, you have only one screen, so it doesn't matter, so that's the reason you have this. How do you want to change this? So if you select, as I said, is very contextual. I selected the view. When you select the view, there are multiple small icons on the property side you see. And one of that, which is the fourth one from the top, is going to show the identity inspector, right? So that, I'm sorry, the fifth one from the top is the property one. Now, if you see here, it has different properties for the screen, which will show you what you want to do with the particular environment. So what I did was I now selected the view controller. I'll talk about what a view controller is, but think of this as the view for a screen. As soon as you select that, the property changes here. And you see here, there is the property is initial view controller. If you deselect that, there's nothing shown here, but when you'll execute or you run your application, the app will not know where to go. So you at least need to have one initial view controller. So you select a view controller by selecting here, or this icon you see. When you select it, you see that property sheet on the other side. Click that back and you see the arrow mark here. Right, so what we'll do for now is we will make it a little bigger, and let's try to play around with this, right? So this view controller is created to you by default. It's over here, and it has one view, which is this view that you see here, right? Let's play around with this. This view is currently white in color. How about we try to change the color? So what you do is you select the view, whatever you want to change the property, select, you see the property changes here. And beyond that, fifth one, which is known as the attribute inspector, which all the properties are shown there. And there you see there's a background color. So drop down it and you can give different color. That's for the sake of this demo. I'll make it a light gray one. See this changes. And let's do a basic thing. Let's try to run this. So when you try to run this, you see here on the top, there is a drop down, which is known as simulator drop down. It's a very interesting one. You can simulate on different environment. You know that there are different iPhones, right? iPhone 8 is different from iPhone 11. There is Max, which is a larger one. There's a Plus, which is a larger one. 8 is a smaller one. You can have various different views on which you can test your application out. Right now we have done nothing. It's a gray screen, and let's try to take iPhone SE for now. And then you have this button, which is a run button. So what will happen is it will create a simulated environment for you where you can see your real app as if it is happening on your iPhone. So let's run it and see what happens. As you run it, it's going to build your application, make sure everything is working fine, give you the message build succeeded, and then you see that a simulator pops up automatically. It is going to work, and it's going to bring the screen up for you. Right. Takes a minute for the first time for installing everything, but you see that color has changed. As you can see it, you're getting a gray color. It has come to gray. You can stop the play of this by clicking on this. Let's try to play around with this. Let's take the view again, and this time I give a blue color, or a teal color as it says it, and run it again. See what happens. If the screen doesn't pop up, just plop it up right here. See, the screen is blue. Now this time it was a little faster because the app was already there on the simulated environment. Great. So then let's try to do one more thing. Let's stop this, and this time on the view controller property. So I have to select the view controller either from this navigation, or you can click here as well, also on the top, the arrow where I'm showing. Let's try to play around with this. Let's say that this is not the initial view controller. Remember what I told you. There's no initial view controller. The simulator would not know, and the computer would not know where to land. So will it happen or not? Let's see if it does something like that. So I'm going to run it. You see no app, it's a blank screen. Though the app is running, it doesn't know where to go, so it's not showing anything. Cool. All right, so I think that's all for today now. What we are going to do in the next app is we'll create the first screen of the book app, which will allow you to show certain properties, like, a book will have a book name, author name, maybe a genre. We'll try to see how we can design a screen where we can take those from the user to store it inside the database. So with that, I want to leave you. Hope you like the video. If you like it, please subscribe to my video. It's on the left hand side. You can subscribe. Leave your comments. Tell me what you want to learn more. And if you have any questions about this or anything for that matter, please drop me a note and I'll be happy to help. Thank you for listening.